Jasper Johnson is not just one of the best players in the state of Kentucky, but he's also one of the best guards in next year's class, and he's included the Kentucky Wildcats inside his final 5 schools.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be discussing Jasper Johnson, including the Kentucky Wildcats inside his top 5 schools. Also on today's episode, Tounde Yessoufou, an explosive player in next year's class, has added Kentucky in his top 10. A lot of recruiting news on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Jasper Johnson, according to On3, Joe Tipton specifically, Jasper Johnson, a 5-star shooting guard in the 2025 class, has narrowed his list of schools down to 5. The list includes the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Arkansas Razorbacks, the Kentucky Wildcats, the Louisville Cardinals, and the North Carolina Tar Heels. The 6'4" Lexington, Kentucky native has taken official visits to Alabama, Kentucky, and North Carolina, according to Tipton. We can look here both on On3's recruiting rankings and 247 Sports. According to 247 Sports, Jasper Johnson, again, 6'4", 175-pound combo guard, shooting guard. I would play him exclusively off ball, but we'll get to that in a second. He is rated, according to 247 Sports, their raw player rating, as the number 12 player in next year's class, a 5-star, number 2 shooting guard, and number 4 player in the state of Georgia, playing for OT Elite right now. I believe he actually just recently transferred to OT Elite, or Overtime Elite, I should say. According to the 247 Sports composite rankings, he's a top 10 player and a top 3 player in the state of Georgia. According to On3, he is the number 15 player, number 4 shooting guard, number 4 player in the state of Georgia. He's a very, very good prospect. On3's recruiting prediction machine gives the Kentucky Wildcats a 75% chance to land Jasper Johnson. But I don't want to sit here and tell you today that Kentucky is the strong favorite. In fact, just based on what we've heard, based on what we've seen, it looks like Alabama and North Carolina are also very much so in the running, if not also even more so in contention, stronger than the Kentucky Wildcats are as of right now. Depends on really who you ask with Jasper Johnson. Some people say, hey, he's looking towards Kentucky more than anything else. Other people say he's looking towards Alabama. To be completely honest with you, if you're talking about system fit and NIL and resources, all 3 of these schools, Tar Heels, Crimson Tide, and Kentucky, they can provide Jasper a variety of different things that I think would satisfy him at the end of the day. In case you want to know about Jasper and kind of the way that he plays, again, he's listed at shooting guard or listed at combo guard, depending on where you look. I personally, I would play him exclusively off ball because of the way that he can score and even more so specifically shoot the basketball. These were my notes last time I talked about Jasper on the show. Versatile scorer with legitimate outside range. He's a southpaw. He's a left-handed shooter, but man, he can really spray it from all across the floor. He's got a little bit of an odd jumper, but if the ball goes in at a 38 to even 40+% clip. It's perfectly fine. I think he needs to add a little bit of strength to be a true 3-level threat in college, to be able to get to the rim, score in the mid-range, and shoot from beyond the arc. Obviously, you could say that about basically any high school prospect that you talk about, but at 6'4", 175, a little bit on the skinnier side, lankier, but I don't necessarily think it hurts him a ton. And this is what the scouting reports have said, and this is kind of what you see when you actually go and watch him. It's not like it's really happening now, but at 170, 175 pounds, anyone could bump him off course, especially with how he handles the ball at times. Sometimes it's a really tight handle. Sometimes it's a little bit loose when he's operating at any point in the game, whether it be in transition, in the half court. He's got to gain weight to be more aggressive driving to the rim. He lacks insane speed, but he ends up doing a ton of damage in transition, again, because of that outside shot. 24/7 Sports says he needs to find other ways to impact the game, but as I've said on the show before, and I will reiterate this for what I think is maybe the third or fourth time, there's not a whole lot I think Kentucky is going to ask Jasper Johnson to do outside of score and pass, especially if the goal is to have wings and bigs that are consistently getting involved with the offense. So we've talked about it a bunch. If you're new to the show, if you're new to the way that Mark Pope kind of wants to operate here, Kentucky is going to utilize essentially every position on the floor to do all kinds of things. You're not going to see one specific aspect of the game kind of restricted or more leaned upon when you look at power forward or center or point guard or what have you. Bigs are going to pass. Power forwards and bigs are going to shoot. It's going to be a very versatile and deep roster, and I think that's how Kentucky wants to sort of construct it going forward. It's not positionless basketball specifically, but there's that idea there, right? With players like Johnson, at his position, you're not going to beg him, especially if you place him alongside a strong point guard, somebody that is strong defensively and is able to kind of carry the weight in the backcourt when it comes to running the offense whenever other players aren't getting involved. In doing so, there's not a ton that Jasper's going to be required to do outside of his current strengths. And as he gets through college, obviously, he's going to be able to develop and build and kind of add on to what he has going on right now. But as it stands today, July 24th, I don't see why we would want to make a big deal out of Jasper Johnson not doing a whole lot other than scoring the ball. Because whenever you have shooting guards, it's in the name, they're going to shoot, they're going to try and score points. I think that he is perfectly fine for where he's at. Again, Kentucky kind of playing positionless basketball in a way with the way that they add other players into the rotation, getting them involved, running sets, being involved in the passing game. Amari Williams, obviously, a bunch of stories coming out about how impactful he's going to be for Kentucky. He had 4 assists in the highlight videos that we saw from the La Familia scrimmage, which, by the way, La Familia crushed that to advance to the Elite Eight. It's not hard to win tournament games, and Tyler Ulis is showing us that right now. But anyway, Jasper Johnson is just an excellent, excellent bucket getter that I think with time can develop into an even more well-rounded player. It's just I don't necessarily think with his skill set, he's going to have to be demanded he's not going to have to be begged to really add other parts to his game because it's not going to really be necessary is kind of what I'm getting at here. Johnson, according to On3 and Joe Tipton, kind of talked about a bunch of different schools here with Kentucky, Bama, North Carolina, Arkansas, Louisville. And here's what he had to say about the Wildcats. I like them and the staff. I got to meet them last month. I'm pretty sure I got to meet them and talk to them for a few minutes. I got to watch practice and heard Pope's message. Just got to see them play. So just building that relationship. I know it's his first year at Kentucky, but I feel like he will do a good job with the team that he has this year. Also, he said about Alabama, they produce every year. They produce great guards, and their guard play is really good, and they just had a Final Four run. Coach Oates does a really good job up there, so I've been staying in contact with them. A couple of my teammates from last year, which were, I believe, Darion Reed and LeBaron, I think it's Philon, are now there as freshmen, and they're going to have a good year, so I'm going to watch them for sure. North Carolina, he said Coach Hubert Davis tells me if he could get me now as a reclass or stay in 2025, he wants me whenever. He definitely says he wants me to play for him next year or whenever I want to, so giving me that message. And then Coach Sean May is texting me and my parents every single day, just building that relationship and that bond. Jasper also later said that he does intend on planning on staying in that 2025 class. So there you go. Jasper Johnson, I think in decent standing with the Kentucky Wildcats right now. I kind of want to see more, kind of want to see how this plays out here. But I don't think Kentucky's lost the race by no means, but they've got two schools here in North Carolina and Alabama, and then also Arkansas, Louisville. You cannot forget them as well. There's going to be a lot of competition, I think, to get this kid at the end of the day. So let me know what you think in the comments below about Jasper Johnson and the Kentucky Wildcats. All right, before we get to Tounde Yessoufou, his top 10, and how we feel about the Kentucky Wildcats in his race, and I feel very good about where Kentucky stands with Tounde, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. I have absolutely loved using Game Time throughout this summer to go to MLB games, specifically to go watch the Atlanta Braves. They're not having the best season so far, especially after the All-Star break, but man, going to Game Time has been an extremely smooth experience. Unlike Braves games, it has been just incredible to be able to go through the Game Time app, get the tickets I want very, very quickly, and get out. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. They take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You need to take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, you can create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, continuing along here on the Wednesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you again. I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed on the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did. So let's talk here for a little bit about Tounde Yessoufou, a 5-star prospect that has included the Kentucky Wildcats inside his top 10. We've talked about Yessoufou on the show before. 6'5", 211-pound power forward, according to 24/7 Sports. According to On3, he is a 6'5", 210-pound small forward. Based on the way that he plays, though, because of his physicality, I could see him in Worlds apart from ours, sliding down to the floor for and playing there consistently. But I think, just like we talked with Jacob Polachek of KSR earlier this week, I think that he is more fit for that 3, maybe even 2 spot at 6'5". According to 24/7 Sports and their composite ratings, he is the number 20 player overall, number 6 player, power forward, and the number 2 player in the state of California. According to On3, there's their raw player ratings. He's the number 3 player in the, or 13 player in the 2025 class, number 4 power forward / small forward, and the best player in the state of Cali. He's a 5-star on 24/7 Sports composite ratings, but no recruiting service right now has him rated as a 5-star. Every single one, including On3, which has him as a top 15 prospect, they all have him rated as a 4-star. I think that this kid is definitely 5-star talent, and I think a lot of people would tend to agree. According to Joe Tipton of On3, Yessoufou, one of the top small forwards in the 2025 class, has narrowed his list of schools to 10. Arizona State, Baylor, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, UCLA, UConn, USC, and Washington. He has taken official visits to USC, Arizona, and Washington with their old staff. Baylor will host him for a visit on August 24th, and he plans to set up more visits in the near future. He averaged an impressive 20.8 points per game on the EYBL circuit with Team Why Not this spring and summer. He had a very, very good summer, according to Jacob Polachek, who saw him just a couple of weeks ago. He didn't have the best shooting game, but still, the talent is absolutely there. Of course, Yessoufou has talked about all of his different relationships with these different programs, with On3's Jamie Shaw, and I really do think The way he talks about Kentucky is very interesting. If you actually scroll through here, this article over on On3, and you look at what he has said about each school, he said the most about Kentucky, which has not typically been the thing we have discussed when talking about different recruits and what they have to say about these various schools. But this is what Tounde Yessoufou had to say about Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats when he was asked about UK. He said, my relationship has been really good with Kentucky. Mark Pope, every time he comes to my practice, he's a funny guy. He tells me to keep going and to play hard. His energy is unique. He is the type of coach that can push you hard to develop yourself both on and off the court. His message to me is that he wants me to play for him because I am a great person and how hard I play. He enjoys watching me play every time. He always gives me advice to stay mentally strong out there, even if things don't go my way, to stick to the plan and move on to the next play. It really matters to me that a coach can tell me what I need to hear, the truth. And previously in other interviews, he's also talked about how he has wanted an offer from Kentucky, how he's wanted to get some interest from UK, and he's getting that right now. He's got the offer. He's got the official visit planned in the future, according to SB Nation's A Sea of Blue. If I'm not mistaken, I'll read this quote here directly so that I'm not. It has already been reported that Kentucky will receive Yessoufou's last official visit, so one would have to like the Cats' chances to land the talented forward at this point. You feel good about where Kentucky is with Tounde Yessoufou as a recruit. You feel good against this top 10. This is a very good top 10 if things continue to play out well for Mark Pope and the Cats. It's clear Yessoufou likes Pope and his personality and the way that he approaches the game. But Tounde as a prospect in a Mark Pope system is interesting. He's a 5-star, top 25 prospect. Again, like I said, consensus top 25 prospect, if I'm not mistaken. He's undersized for a power forward position, but physically he has the traits to play it. He would play the 3, I think, for Pope. His jump shot is a little flat, but he can shoot. This is something that we discussed with Polachek. While he didn't have a great shooting night, he has shown the ability, when left open, to knock it down at a pretty consistent rate. I think you would have to develop his outside shooting game, and if you could, this is a lottery pick on your hands. He's explosive. There are some other channels out here on YouTube that tend to disagree with the notion that Yessoufou is a high flyer. He is an explosive dunker. I think that he is, just based off what I have seen on his highlight reels. He's an athletic player. There's not a lack of athleticism here. He's very explosive. I said to Polachek, I've said to you on my show before, and I'll reiterate it for a third time here. I think that Yessoufou is Chris Livingston, except he has a higher ceiling offensively. He's a higher flyer. He's got a bit of a post-up game, but I doubt it will be consistently reliable in college because of his height. But the muscle, the physicality, the strength, dude, when it comes to getting downhill and finishing, when it comes to those different things that he likes to do in the mid-range, on defense as well, the kid plays hard and he relies on his strength to get him through plays, and it's very impressive. Very impressive at just 6'5", 210 pounds. The kid is built like an ox. It's a very entertaining style of play, and one that I think as a bruiser would be fun in a Mark Pope type system. Now, is he going to be out there consistently spraying threes? I'm not sure. Again, you would have to be able to kind of develop that part of his game, which I'm sure he's working on. But if you do that, this does become a top 15 lottery pick type of guy that at the end of the day you can look at and say, hey, because of his abilities, because of the strength, because of the things that he does well, if you can add on to it and you can develop, which the assumption is that he will in college, you're going to get a really good college player as well. Is it the perfect system, quote-unquote, fit? No, but is it a 5-star prospect that can do a lot of different things and has a very high ceiling? Yes, I believe so. Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats, I think, would be very happy to land a player like Yessoufou. All right, Let me know what you think about Yessoufou in the comments below, as well as Jasper Johnson, 5-star point guard, or combo guard, I should say, that is looking at you. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Just want to remind you guys, if you have any questions for the show, whether you be listening on podcast or on YouTube, leave them in the YouTube comments below, or you can also tag me in a tweet at Locked On UK. You can message me there as well to ask me a question. I will be more than willing to answer it here on the show. And yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_. You can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.